for pulmonary nodule. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'd like to first introduce to all my panelists, Dr. Ashu Bhalla. She's a professor in Department of Radiology at AIIMS Delhi. Dr. Prashant Mohapatra, he's a professor in pulmonary medicine and critical care at AIIMS Bhubaneswar. Dr. Priya S. Punyani, she's a consultant thoracic surgeon at Asian Cancer Institute, Mumbai. Dr. Bharat Dua, he's a consultant radiation oncologist at Venkateshwar Hospital, Delhi. And Dr. Aditi Diwan, she's a consultant pathologist at Core Diagnostics in Delhi. So, briefly discussing about the cases, my first case today is of a 38-year-old gentleman with no known comorbidities, otherwise healthy, light smoker. He was being evaluated for a renal stone, and his CT upper abdomen showed in limited cuts a subcentimetric nodule in the left lower lobe of the lung of doubtful significance. Dr. Ashu, my first question is to you. How would you read this image and how would you actually comment on it?
Yeah, good evening, Shubham, and good evening to all the panelists and delegates who are logged on. Firstly, whenever we see a nodule, on a lung window like this, I'd first like to ascertain that it is actually a nodule. So you would say that if it's not a nodule, what it can be. So something which is peripherally located and abutting the pleura, it's always a good idea to check the mediastinal window at that time and see that there is no pleural thickening. It's very often that pleural thickenings and round associated nodular thickening or atelectases round is misinterpreted as nodules. And focal small pleural thickenings like this are quite frequent. So having ascertained that, okay, it's not a pleural thickening, it is a pleural based nodule, you still want to look at the mediastinal window and see that it's not like a totally calcified lesion, a totally calcified heel lesion, which is just lying there. And assuming that it is none of these and it is truly a nodule, then we go on to say in a non-calcified nodule, is it really totally solid or is it like part solid and part ground glass, what are now called subsolid nodules, part solid nodules, which in this case is a completely solid nodule. So solid nodule incidentally detected means that we will apply the Fleischner Society guidelines to this. So this, what you are actually showing is the solid nodule classification based on size. So I don't have the classification, I don't have the caliper on this, but visually I think the size is about 6 to 8 mm. So 6 to 8 mm, places a really low risk of malignancy, less than 2% from what I recall for even low risk individuals and high risk. So this low risk, high risk is completely based on the clinical background, age, smoking, etc. And also the nodule showed me no suspicious morphological features in terms of speculation, etc. So as far as the guideline says that we do a second follow-up CT at somewhere between 6 to 12 months. If the nodule is stable, no growth, another one at 6 to 12 months. When do you stop following up? Because it's a young patient. So solid nodule, stable for 2 years, you can stop following up the nodule. So that would be the course of action in this case.
Thank you, Dr. Ashu. So now coming to the next question, that do these recommendations apply to all patient populations or are there any exceptions to these?
Yeah, so, the first thing is that your patient actually shouldn't be, symptomatic for anything, in the sense that patient should not be an immunocompromised host who's coming with fever. So it doesn't apply to people who have kids and very young people. So less than 35 years, you can't apply these guidelines. Immunocompromised host, you can't apply these guidelines. Anybody with a known primary, you don't apply these. If the nodule is detected in an LCS screening program, so there are a separate set of guidelines. So this doesn't apply in these particular situations.
Okay. And subsequently, would you have any recommended technical specifications for follow-up examination?
We would do an LD. You have to do an LDCT. So because, this was incidentally detected, so it could have been whatever at a CECT and CCT like that. But we would do an LDCT. And since, follow-up at size is so important, I just want to reinforce that these nodules cannot be followed up on films. These nodules cannot be measured on films. Everything has to be done on a PAC station So either you do it at the same center, or if the patient moves, patient should always have the CD of their original DICOM images with them, because otherwise the nodule cannot be compared, because the size increments which are recommended, which move it towards a suspicious category, are as small as 1.5 mm, which cannot happen on a film. So that clarity has to be there. And as far as technical specifications, LDCT. Yeah.
So great that you pointed out on the size criteria of that as well. And that is exactly what I wanted to highlight, that the CT scan that needs to be done, the slices should be as thin as 1 to 1.5 millimeter for these scans to actually be able to follow them up reliably. Dr. Mahapatra, coming to you, I'd like to ask you, which clinical risk factors would you use to determine the management of such patients?
The most important is history of smoking. If patient is a smoker and patient is having COPD or long-standing fibrosis, or the history of cancer, family cancer, history of family cancer, and if you look at the size of the nodule also, that's more important. And all these factors decides the risk of the patients.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mahapatra. So that was an incidentally detected solitary nodule. Now coming to the main focus of the lung cancer conference that we are having. So we are discussing a case here of a 60-year-old 60-year-old diabetic lady who was a former heavy smoker and quit recently. Her husband had died of cancer 5 years ago, and she just decided to undergo a routine annual health checkup with blood investigations which were normal. So, question to the oncologist on the panel, Dr. Bharat, what do you think is the optimal method for lung cancer screening for this patient?
As has already been mentioned by my colleagues, the optimal method for lung cancer screening is a low-dose CT. So this has already been highlighted by my co-panelists, and that is what we would like to do for this patient.
Okay, so I'd like to point out that prior to the 1990s, the trend was more towards chest X-ray sputum cytology based trials. But unfortunately, these never showed any significant impact in lung cancer screening and decreasing the mortality. And that is why they sort of fell into disrepute. And it was only as late as 2000, 2002 when the role of low-dose CT scan started emerging. And it's very recent, maybe 2010 onwards, that we actually have started employing the low-dose CT scan into practice. And now it is fast becoming the standard of care. Obviously, it comes with its own set of problems of false positive reports, especially in a country like India, which is a hindrance to its widespread adoption. But that's one of the ways to look at it. And probably we have something now in the bag than what we were not having. So my question to Dr. Priya and Dr. Mohapatra is this patient a candidate for lung cancer screening? So when I was discussing, this patient is a heavy smoker, quit smoking recently, age 60 years plus. So what do you think? Is this patient a candidate for lung cancer screening?
Yes, this patient is a candidate for screening.
And which patients do you think, sir, would benefit the most?
I think the smokers, so more the elderly age, and particularly who has recently quit, and the pay care is high, that smoking index is very high, and those patients are going to benefit most.
Okay. Priya, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, so the same thing, the American Chest Physicians Guidelines say anyone who's say 55 to 75 years and who has been a smoker of 30 packs a year or more and has quit or is continuing within last 15 years. So because lung cancer now has been seen in a lot of non-smokers also, but since smoking forms a major part and screening is something which cannot be done to the entire population, these are the 4 criteria which have been included by the American Society.
Okay, thank you. So this patient, based on her high risk suspicion, was enrolled onto our lung cancer screening program. And these are the images that are representative of this patient. So Dr. Ashu Bhalla, I'd request you again to please read these images for us, if you can.
So we go in the same sequence, that first ascertain it's non-calcified on the mediastinal window. After that, you classify it as being either a solid nodule, a ground glass nodule, which is often abbreviated as GGN, or a part solid nodule, which is often abbreviated as PSN or part solid nodule, amongst which the part solid has the highest risk of being malignant, especially adenocarcinoma. So these are the ones that we are very wary of. Now, how do you ascertain, this morphology, but is all found very frequently with infections also. So if we look at this nodule, it has a component in the center, which is like looking densely white. And then we have a component towards the periphery, which is a little milky. So it's the one which is absolutely center and white is the solid part. And the one which is milky at the side is the part solid, the ground glass part. So when we report this, the requirement is that we need to mention the size of both. You see, the entire nodule as well as the solid component. And then the guideline moves accordingly, the LungRADS program. If you remember the CA lung staging, so for T1 stage also 5 mm solid component is required. So, less than 5 mm, they are taken as pre-invasive lesions. And so herein the guideline starts from 6 mm. So if it is less than 6 mm or 6 to 8 mm or more than 8 mm. So visually, I feel this is about 6 to 8 mm, which actually requires us to do a follow-up CT at 3 months. And if it is persistent, then move on with a PET CT and then further take a decision.
Dr. Ashu Bhalla, could you please also elaborate more on the low-dose CT scan for the audience?
So you see, the definition of a low-dose CT is something which delivers a dose of less than 3 milligrams. So that is the minimum that you need to achieve. But as he has shown in the slide, if we choose a LD protocol, for instance, on our scanner, we will be delivering somewhere between 1 to 2 milligrams. But what is bare minimum is that more than 3, you are not permitted to deliver as part of a screening program. And however low we go, it's better. But can we go below 1? So just to bring up, it's not part of a guideline, but there is something known as ULDCT now, which is available on a lot of scanners. That is available on our scanner also, where we are trying to go some sub-millisievert, means less than 1 millisievert, and we are eventually trying to obtain an equivalence with chest radiograph. But as we go down, the image gets grainy. So as of now, the ULDCT is not included in the guideline, and the guideline states that you do an LD, so which means your doses will be somewhere from 1 to 3 millisieverts.
Okay, thank you for that. And would you please elaborate on the LungRADS? I know you did already, but something.
Yeah, so LungRADS is the reporting system that we are supposed to follow in case, just like you have BI-RADS, liver-RADS. So in a screening setting, so in a screening setting, we have to follow a LungRADS program. So it will move just like BI-RADS from 0 to 5. And we have an X category also in that, depending on whether you saw suspicious features. For instance, in this patient, there were suspicious features present. What was the suspicious feature? The margin was spiculated. So a spiculated margin in a part solid, even by size criteria, if it's coming 2 or 3, it would have gone to 4 automatically. But in our instance, as it is, the solid component is between 6 to 8 mm, which places it in 4A category. So as I said, 4A category means 3 months LDCT, and if it increases or persistent, then we go in for a PET CT.
Okay, thank you. Now question for the oncologist and the pulmonologist, both. Dr. Mohapatra, first you. So how important is the smoking or tobacco cessation advice for healthy volunteers who participated in the low dose CT or the lung cancer screening program as per you? Dr. Mohapatra?
No, what you exactly want to know, that means,
how important is the smoking or tobacco cessation advice for participants in any lung cancer screening program, and how do you go about it?
Yes, Bob. The smoking cessation program is always good, but it has to be as early as possible. You should go for that. You are asking about methodologies.
Yes.
5 years and 2 years. that is ask, advise, assess, and assist, arrange. All that we know that's part of smoking cessation program.
Okay. Dr. Priya, would you like to elaborate on that as well, please?
Yeah, so basically, I think since smoking is a habit which is very difficult to break, and if we plan to break the habit of smoking of a healthy volunteer, it has to be a persistent effort. So now a lot of hospitals have tobacco de-addiction programs. There are different apps also available. One of them is Hopscotch, wherein if a healthy volunteer has logged in or applied for enrolled, then they are given a daily reminders and so forth, just like how you have said about the 5 A's. So basically, it has to be someone who is coordinating with the patient on a very regular basis, and it is a very persistent program. It cannot be just promised, and it cannot be just left by anyone.
Exactly. So it needs to be reinforced again and again for to motivate the patient to actually be able to quit smoking.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Priya, as Dr. Ashu was pointing out, so she has categorized this lesion most likely as a 4A lesion. So, what would your recommendation be for such a patient? A part solid nodule, 4A, lung RADS.
She's high risk. She's diabetic. She's high risk. She's diabetic. She has a solid nodule of around 6 to 8 mm. This requires a 3-monthly LDCT. If it stays the same, it is repeated. If there is any rise, then she goes ahead for a PET CT and SOS a biopsy.
Great. Thanks a lot.
I think.
So,
yeah. This is actually this is ideal. What is on theory, but particularly situation in India may be quite different because the part solid picture it may mimic like granulomatous lesion, like tuberculosis, and we have to clinically exclude this, and over the time that patient is not tubercular, and we have to exclude it is tuberculosis, and even if PET CT also may not able to exclude tuberculosis. So we have to keep in mind the subsequent behavior of this particularly subsolid component. So it may rather than growth. Yes, madam.
Yeah. What you are saying exactly the same thing. I was thinking whether I should say it or not. I also would have a low threshold of doing a biopsy. Like if on close follow-up, if there's any hint that there's any increase in size, and if it's possible to take a biopsy and prove it as soon as possible, because in India, one is tuberculosis, second is lack of follow-up, a defaulting attitude. So I think Dr. Mahapatra is absolutely right.
If patient comes to me and it's approachable, we'll do a fine needle aspiration and we'll send for a gene expert and also cytopathology to exclude or include whatever. Means we have to, because this is the opportunity. It's not very small also to follow up, but it's a
so Shubham,
incidental without the.
Yes, Dr. Bhalla, please.
May I add? I wanted to say the same thing. Priya brought out that patients don't follow up, but what I would like to say is actually, once you tell somebody that it's a suspicious or a highly suspicious morphology, most patients don't accept this option of follow-up. The anxiety to wait for 3 months is so much that even this thing is that usually we are pushed into taking a decision. If I was also detected to have, everybody says like have it out as soon as possible. So, but I have also had radiologists complain to me and say that, suppose a patient got a pneumothorax who was asymptomatic before doing the biopsy, and then the pneumothorax gets messed up with hydropio, and somebody has been sued in this regard. So I think that this is the time that you have to take the patient on board and give them the option. And my experience in whatever part solid these types where I thought must be inflammatory, what to do, unfortunately, everything has come out adenocarcinoma. We eventually got biopsied, got them resected. Everything around this size, which is looking, you think it'll go away, it's TB, but 3 months is a long time, and usually people are not willing to wait. So it's all right if you want to biopsy. So that's what in practical terms, even for 6 to 8 mm, you may choose to go in for a PET CT and sample it early, and then sometimes even if it's inconclusive, you can you need to take the patient into confidence and let them take some decisions.
Absolutely, it needs to be a discussion. I feel between the physician, the doctor, and the patient, and whatever then comes out of the discussion is the most relevant in the clinical situation given.
So there is, hello, can
Yeah,
anyone, yeah, there's one additional point to be made here. Even the lung rads, they also recommend assessment via models. So they've given a model by McWilliams et al. Called the Brock model. That's not been mentioned by anyone. This model actually is able to predict the possibility or the probability of lung cancer in a particular individual, and is recommended as a part of shared decision making. So when you are actually talking to your patient about a biopsy or maybe going in for a surgical resection, even, you have to quote this model, maybe calculate the probability and give him a percentage probability of his cancer, this disease actually being malignant. This is also something that needs to be taken into consideration.
absolutely. Thank you for giving that vital information, Bharat. That's actually quite true. So, quickly coming to the third case now. This is of a 69-year-old gentleman, hypertensive, on medications, heavy smoker. So, the physician recommended for this patient a low-dose CT scan for lung cancer screening. And to the patient's surprise, it actually showed a 15 mm solid nodule in the right upper lobe of the lung, which was reported as a lung RADS 4B. This is the lesion that was seen. So, quick question to Dr. Mohapatra and then coming to Dr. Bharat. Would you recommend any additional testing in this patient, and what would be the sequence of testing according to you? Dr. Mohapatra?
For clinician with a high risk patient with high chance of high risk patient, simply go for a transthoracic needle biopsy if it is feasible and radiologists agree. This is a very simple things to rule out cancer, because otherwise you say something is patient, something is some nodule is there, and patient is going to very apprehensive, might have cancer. So that means a realistic approach will go for a biopsy.
Absolutely.
And it's not bronchoscopically, it's not accessible.
Yes, sir. Bharat, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, so this is a lung RADS 4B, which has been detected on a screening protocol. So this is solid nodule more than 15 mm. So as per the protocol, what we should do probably is go for a PET CT first and see the avidity of the nodule. Then what we can do is, I would no doubt go for a biopsy, but I would do it after the PET CT.
Okay.
With the PET CT, I would actually get an idea of whether the nodule's avid or not. And there are certain, again, I'm stressing on the models. There are models that predict post-test probabilities of a nodule being malignant, such as the Herder model. Once you've done a PET CT, you have a good probability, you have a good idea of whether your nodule is malignant or not. Then you go for a biopsy. So that just in case you get a false negative on your biopsy, you're better informed of what to do next. So I would do a PET CT first, then a biopsy. I would definitely do a biopsy. I agree with sir. We should definitely do a biopsy in this case.
PET definitely more ideal PET CT, but in a realistic condition, person
yes, absolutely.
We need biopsy. We need a tissue. Tissue is the issue.
And
Absolutely.
as
Yes.
Bharat, as Dr. Mohapatra said that this lesion may not be accessible bronchoscopically, what would be your preferred modality for tissue sampling for this patient, given the options?
So again, if we can just go back to the picture of the nodule. So this is a peripheral nodule is situated in the outer third of the lung. I probably would go for a CT guided biopsy in this case. There does not seem to be any bronchus sign, does not seem to be a bronchus close to the lesion. And again, I don't think we would have to transverse a fissure to get to this nodule, and don't seem to be any emphysematous changes around. But obviously, I would consult with my pulmonologist and my interventional radiologist and my surgeon before taking any further steps. And they would help me. They would help tell me what would be the ideal approach.
So now this brings us to Dr. Aditi, who's been quiet for such a long time now. So Dr. Aditi, are there any recommendations for obtaining and handling the transthoracic samples for a biopsy of these lung nodules?
Yes. So the College of American Pathologists has given actually guidelines for handling of thoracic samples in 2020. And they say that according to the location of the nodule, which in this case is a peripheral nodule, I would go in for a CT guided biopsy. And when we are doing a biopsy, according to the procedure, the gauge of the needle changes. Usually it varies between around 18 to 22 gauge needles that are used. Then one thing is that multiple passes need to be taken, and if there is an FNA procedure before a biopsy that is being done, we should always ensure that we are taking extra passes for obtaining cell block material, because when it comes to lung biopsies or obtaining any material for lung, nothing is adequate. We always require more tissue. So we should always ensure that we are taking enough material for cell block preparations. Then also, apart from that, when we're taking biopsy, some studies have also described touch imprints that can be taken similar to what we do for bone marrow biopsies. So these touch imprints of the needle biopsies can also be taken. Then rapid on-site evaluation is extremely important because it's going to give a real-time feedback to the person who's performing the biopsy about the adequacy of the procedure. And also minimum of 3 number of cores should be taken, maximum usually around 6 cores can be taken, and these biopsies, they should be fixed in 10% neutral buffered formalin, and no other fixatives should be used. Other thing is, one of the things that people do is that if you're taking 6 cores, you're putting all the cores in one block. So that should be completely avoided, and multiple blocks we should try and make. That is because every time we cut the block for a process, it keeps on getting depleted. So ideally, they say that when for lung biopsies, if we are assessing the specimen adequacy, at that time itself, around 26 slides should be cut for the further ancillary and molecular testing that needs to be done.
Okay. And can you please highlight of how difficult is it to report on transthoracic FNA samples versus core biopsies? Because in the peripheries, transthoracic FNAs are done much more prevalently than in
the issue with aspirates could be one. Malignancy usually wouldn't be difficult if there is adequate amount of tumor present in the aspirate, but it may be difficult to differentiate between an adenocarcinoma versus squamous cell carcinoma in an NSCLC. And also certain pre-invasive lesions such as adenocarcinoma in situ, minimally invasive adenocarcinomas cannot be actually detected on aspirates, as well as also on small biopsy, because all of them have a limiting pattern. So we won't be really able to report them.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Aditi. Just a gentle reminder, last 3 minutes left.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Dr. Bharat, my question to you is, how would you approach this patient in case there's a radiopathological discordance? So, Dr. Ashu is saying it's a 4B lesion, and Dr. Aditi says that she's not able to find any malignant tissue in the biopsy taken. How would you approach it?
Yes. So again, like I just mentioned, I keep coming back to this again and again. I would actually calculate the patient's pre-test and post-test probability of his disease being malignant according to established models. If say I use the Brock model, or if we are doing a PET CT, I use the Herder model, and I get a predicted probability of more than 65% as per the ACCP and Fleshner guidelines, even if the biopsy is negative. And I know if for a less than 15 mm lesion, the accuracy of a biopsy can be as low as 70 to 80%. I would actually sit with my patient, explain all the options to him, do a shared decision making. I would assess his surgical risk, whether he's low, moderate, or high. If he's a low, moderate case, surgical risk, I might even go for a surgical resection upfront if the probability is more than 65%, which puts him in the high risk category as per Fleshner and ACCP.
Okay. So the question is asking you, would you opt to treat this patient? So you said surgically if the surgical risk is low, but if the surgical risk is high, would you opt to treat through any of these non-surgical modalities as well?
So absolutely. So this patient has a peripheral lesion, 12 mm in the outer third of the lung. If the patient had been operable, I would have definitely advised him surgery. It is still the standard of care for a PT 1B NSCLC, as this case is. But if the patient's not operable, or if the patient does not wish to have surgery, then we have an alternative option, which is SBRT. And as per the latest ASTRO guidelines for SBRT, this patient is actually a good candidate. I would actually like to know a couple of things regarding his distance from the chest wall and his absolute lesion size, but he appears to be a good candidate for SBRT. And as you are showing the slide, it is one of the options if the patient is not detected to have metastasis on a PET CT and is eligible for radical therapy. I would actually go for SBRT in this case.
Okay. And Dr. Priya, supposingly this patient is a good surgical candidate, how would your approach be for this patient to deal with this? There is a radio pathological disorders.
Yeah, no, what Dr. Bharat said, I agree that if it is a high risk, I would sit down and talk to the patient. I would do if it is a radiopathological discordance, I would go in for a VATS. If it's a high risk patient, do a VATS excision, wedge excision, send it for frozen section. Let the final report come. If the report proves it to be a malignancy, I will go ahead and do the completion lobectomy and systematic lymph node dissection. Though there are studies now of segmentectomy and non-lobectomy, but as yet the gold standard is lobectomy. So I would still go ahead and do a lobectomy with a lymph node dissection if on frozen section it comes out to be positive. And if it does not come out to be positive, then it's the end of the story for the patient and for me with the total mind relaxation. That's what I would prefer.
Thank you, Dr. Priya. I think we are nearing the end of our time. Thank you, all my panelists. And Sanjeev, back to you.